All right, it's Nic Harcourt here with Dan Croll, who I met 5 years ago, 6 years ago. We did a Guitar Center podcast.
We did. It was so good. We did it twice.
Let me explain what that was. I did some TV shows for Guitar Center sessions, and we also used to do these podcasts where we would get into the Hollywood location there on Sunset, in the back room, set up a little sort of mini, setup, almost unplugged kind of setup, record the band, and then record an interview. And we had a great time. And then
absolutely,
I was off in Santa Monica doing something else. And I'm thinking, were in a hotel room somewhere in Hollywood. And I'm presuming we both got a call saying, hey, guess what? They didn't record the interview.
They forgot to press record. Yeah.
So we did it twice.
Yeah, it was even better the second time around.
But that's probably literally 5 years ago, I'm sure. And,
at least.
Things have changed a little bit for you since then. First of all, you now live in Los Angeles.
Yes. I moved, it's been about 2.5 years now. Yeah, just over on the east side.
First of all, what brought you to LA? And then secondly, how has it been?
Oh, yeah, what brought me over here, really, I think it was around the end of 2018, November. I was doing a US tour, and very strangely, I love home, and I'm usually kind of a home bird, but I just got to the end of the tour and I just didn't really want to go home. I felt like there wasn't a great deal for me in Liverpool, kind of in terms of like adventures, in terms of inspiration. I'd spent most of my life there, and just kind of suddenly had this feeling as I headed home back to Liverpool for Christmas that I wanted to maybe give America a go. Been touring here for so long and just never really spent like a good chunk of time, in one place here. And so just after Christmas, I bought a one-way ticket for a week later to LA and just thought, screw it, I'm gone. And so I did. And so I spent 2.5 years now here.
So 2.5 years, obviously you found something to do here. But when you first bought that ticket, was it literally like, I got my guitar, I've got a bag, I'm going to go and see what happens?
Yeah, I didn't even have a guitar. I kind of originally kind of wasn't really thinking about music. I was thinking about just having, a little bit of a breakaway. It'd been a pretty chaotic few years leading up to that. And I was kind of off the back of my second album. I wasn't in the kind of greatest kind of state of kind of like mental health, and so just decided to kind of take a break. But I think as soon as I landed in LA, I realized I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any friends, didn't really know where to live or anything like that, and so just had to start from scratch. And I guess I just realized that the only thing I can really do is music, so there's no escaping that. And it would be a good idea to probably document these experiences through songs.
So LA is a tough town if you don't know anybody.
Yeah.
Can you take us through those early months, and where did you settle? Where did you land?
So when I arrived, I had booked the cheapest Airbnb I could find, which took me to, it was kind of Silver Lake-ish. And it was living with 3 generations of Russian women. And that was one hell of an Airbnb. That was quite a wild one. The youngest kid, who was, must have been at like kind of elementary school, even if not younger, was learning piano at about 6 a.m. every morning before school. So I heard 3 Blind Mice every single morning for my first month there. And then I had a friend who ended up kind of coming back into town, who managed to find me a sublet in Koreatown. And I kind of clung on to him for dear life, to be honest, because he was the only person I kind of loosely knew here. We had met at a festival a year before. We'd done an interview for his podcast, and he just kind of had that, open-ended invite of, if you ever come up to LA, let me know. And so... Right. And so I dropped him a message, but he was gone for the first month. So so I was kind of with the Russian women in Silver Lake, just hanging around, I don't know. I was just a bit of a loose end. I thought it would be easier than it was.
Right.
But then it dawned on me very quickly. I was like, how do you make friends again? I'm 28 and I haven't had
Yeah.
to do this since I was, a kid, maybe like a teenager at some point,
Right.
Um, so it was tough. And so, yeah, I had to call on a lot of favors of random people that I met and had to, really kind of try and get into that mindset of saying yes to everything and really putting myself out there, which was kind of easier said than done. But eventually I started to kind of make some friends, especially through the sublets once they kind of found their feet, and I started to meet a few more kind of like-minded people and make some kind of inroads into the kind of LA music kind of industry, but yeah, I mean, it took a long time. It took, a whole year, I guess, at least.
So let me ask you this, and I don't want to get too personal. If it's too personal, you tell me to shut up, and I won't dig any deeper. But, it sounds like you just really needed to reinvent yourself, like as a guy, like life-wise. I mean, I've left England when I was 25, I think I left, and I moved to Australia, which is the other side of the planet. You cannot physically go any further from Birmingham than
Yeah.
than Brisbane without actually leaving the planet.
Yeah.
And I looked back at it years later and I was like, God, I must have really needed to get away,
Yeah. I think there was kind of two reasons. I think one was kind of like, I guess, personal life, and one was more professional life. And I think personal life wise, I absolutely love Liverpool. And obviously I say this from quite a kind of privileged standpoint, but I feel like it's an easy city to exist in. I feel like it's relatively easy to find work, to pay an affordable rent, to be close to friends, to have a community. It's a very welcoming city and all of that. And so I find that a lot of people settle there quite early in life. And like I say, I was 28 and I felt like suddenly everyone was, having kids, everyone was buying houses, everyone was just like, no, this is me, done, Liverpool
Right.
for the rest of my life. And
Right.
I think that kind of freaked me out a little bit. As much as I want those things, at some point, that wasn't the time. And I became a little bit paranoid about just settling, just like, cool, kind of putting up my feet and just that being that,
Right.
And then I think musically as well, I'd had a weird, two albums in the music industry it's been like 10 years now, but, I'm sure it's a bit of a brutal industry, and I've gone through those hoops so many times. I feel, even though 2 albums doesn't sound like a lot, it feels like I've really been through the ring in terms of trying different things out, or like different labels, different management, pop, commercial, radio, going for everything, trying to be commercially successful and achieve the label's dreams and all of this stuff. It's exhausting, absolutely exhausting. And especially after the second album, I really felt like I wasn't making music that I, set out to make when I first started making music. And I think it was that American tour at the tail end of 2018 that really made me realize that, because like with every tour, me and the guys share so much music in the van together. I tour with 8 of my closest friends, and I have done for 10 years now. And, we share a lot of music. That's not, anything out of the ordinary. But I feel like that tour in particular, we were sharing a lot of kind of Americana. We were sharing a lot of folk. We were sharing a lot of kind of stuff from the kind of Laurel Canyon 70s era. And I was just like, these are my biggest influences. Yeah, I make music that sounds nothing like them. I couldn't be further from my influences right now. I'm trying to chase this kind of commercial pop dream and write these 3-minute 30 songs that tick all of these boxes sonically and melodically and all of that. And so I just became very unhappy with the music I'd made, and was just like, I don't feel like I can really call myself a solo artist, because I'm not able to play these songs just on an acoustic guitar. They're not able to stand on their own 2 feet. They rely on production too much. They rely on this big kind of sound to carry them. And so I was just like, I've got to get out of Liverpool, and I've got to put myself in a precarious position and see what happens, in terms of life events and experiences. And I've got to just play one instrument. I've got to really just write songs on one instrument
Right.
for once, and just be able to write a song that can stand on its own 2 feet.
Well, as I mentioned, LA is a tough town to come to when you don't know anybody. And as you've already explained, you went through a little bit of time finding somewhere to live and finding some people to hang out with. So let's talk about the music. When you started writing songs in Los Angeles, how did things shift for you with all that you've just told us?
Yeah, so I mean, once I realized that it would be silly not to document this first year in LA, I realized that I probably should have brought some instruments with me. And so I went to Old Style Guitar shop in Virgil Village, and just got a cheap kind of nylon string classical guitar. And I went on Craigslist and bought a Tascam 4-track recorder. And it was exactly that thing, what I was talking about with stripping everything back down. By buying that 4-track recorder, I had no option but to stick to 4 tracks. So that would maybe allow me a guitar, maybe a lead vocal, and maybe 2 backing vocals, harmonies. And so I kind of purposefully restricted myself in terms of the way I was recording music. And then in terms of the way I was writing music, I was just going through these experiences, and then as quickly as possible, sometimes the same night that I came home, I'd try and write a song there and then, which is something I've never done. I am so easily distracted, and previous songs take me months to finish. I write half a song and I get distracted, I move on. And I know what I'm like. And so I really tried my best to just there and then, or the next morning, sit down and not get up until I finished the song.
That's quite some discipline you had to give yourself.
Yeah, I just know what I'm like, my own worst enemy.
Yeah, and then how did that then lead to recording songs and starting to release stuff again? I mean, let me back up for a second. I mean, did you think you might be done with the music business when you got here? I mean, the fact that you didn't bring an instrument and then you went out and bought something. When was the moment that you thought, no, this is what I do, this is what I have to do? And then how did you go from doing those 4-track demos or whatever to getting back into your career?
Yeah, I think I could have thrown the towel in the ring after that second album. I probably think that still every now and then, especially during these kind of global circumstances as well. But I felt like I at least needed to give it one more go, to really simplify it and bring it back to basics. Because I think in doing that, I hoped that I could kind of reignite this passion, which I do think I have. There was a feeling that I haven't had since I was like 16, when I was sitting down and writing a song from start to finish. That's a very proud feeling. And I think probably anyone hearing a musician say this is like, well, that's what everyone does. But I don't think a lot of people just sit down and write a song anymore. I think we are slightly kind of distracted or diluted in the way that we now make music. And so to sit down and feel that sense of accomplishment of writing a song is something that definitely reignited that fire, like I said.
What about showing them to the world?
So I probably wrote about maybe about 20 songs over that first year. And I'd only shared a couple of them with like my manager and the label. And yeah, it was definitely, I felt very vulnerable. I've always felt very vulnerable in the music industry. But this even more so. I just felt, without all of that production and without all of those layers, it all felt very naked. And so I was definitely a little bit shy to show anyone. But then eventually I showed the first couple of songs, or, I picked kind of 4 of my favorites and started to kind of share them to family and my manager and the label. And, I was quite surprised at the feedback that I was given. People kind of, I think, who probably hoped that I'd done this sooner a little bit, and then it came down to trying to find that person who would be right to produce it, and I guess take it to that next level.
So how did you go about that?
Well, I think because these songs felt a lot more kind of raw and a little bit more personal, and I think there was like something quite kind of delicate about them, that having experienced working with kind of a big pop producer and all of that, it's they haven't quite got the delicate touch. And I felt like the only person who really would have that touch would be another musician. I'm not confident enough, I don't think, technically to produce or kind of like track my own record. So I do need that outside help. And so I started looking at musicians who I felt very much like kind of inspired the record, or at least who were kind of on these reference kind of playlists that I make as I write, and one that featured on quite a few of the tracks was Matthew E. White, because I just think there's something, some of these songs sound so big and complex, yet they're very simple in a way. I hope he doesn't mind me calling those songs simple, but they just, I don't know, there's something kind of just simple to them that I really enjoy, yet a part of me listens to them thinking like, how did he do that? What's that sound? Especially one track in particular called Eyes Like the Rest. That track just it kind of just took me somewhere, and it influenced a couple of the tracks on this album. And so when I was going through these playlists, I was just thinking, could this artist do it? Could this artist do it? And then when I looked at Matthew, I had no idea about the other music that he produced. And not only the music he produced, but, starting this record label out in Richmond, Virginia, and this house band stuff he does through that. I was like blown away, to be honest. And so just kind of reached out and started that ball rolling, really. And then before I knew it, I was in Richmond.
So when was this? You got here in 2018?
I got here start of 2019.
2019, okay.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to settle and write and get ready to record? When did you go to Virginia to start recording?
Right at the start of this year.
Oh, wow. So right before all the crazy.
Yeah, right before the crazy. Couldn't have happened at a better time.
I want to talk about the crazy, obviously, because we're all living with it. But so you went at the beginning of this year. Take us through the process. How many songs? Did you do an album? Because I know there's an album, but I know you also released a number of singles first. What was that?
Yeah, I mean, so I spent the first year collecting those songs and writing as I went. And so as soon as I hit the end of the first year, I stopped writing. And then picked my kind of favorite, I guess like 12 tracks, 14 tracks maybe, that I felt showcased that kind of journey through that first year in LA. And so we picked about 14, and then Matt picked his kind of top 12, and we got started on those 12 tracks. In terms of the actual recording of this album, it's something that I've never done before, and I actually didn't know that I was going to do it like this. Because usually, because of budget reasons, especially with the first album, I played a lot of the instruments on it, and I got a lot of close friends to help out for, mates rates and all of that. And then for the second album, the exact same thing again, a major label not wanting to put their hands in their pockets. And so I've ended up playing every single instrument on the second album. When it came to this album, it came together very quickly, and so we were still kind of working as we were going. And I turned up in Richmond, I guess, prepared to just like have a hellish couple of weeks of trying to jump on each instrument and trying to record this record and all of these layers and stuff like that. But when I got there, I went into the room and there was a band in there, and I kind of felt like I'd stumbled into the wrong session in a way, and was like, "Oh,
you must be here for somebody else."
Yeah, I think I'm in the wrong room. And they were just like, "Oh no, we're the band, we're playing on the record and all of this." I was like, "Oh shit, oh okay, cool." And then Matt just kind of ushered me into the kind of engineering, room. And it was amazing because we'd go in each day at midday, we'd all sit down and we'd have lunch. And then we go into the studio together, and we'd play the demo that I'd recorded. We'd play that demo, to the guys. They, incredible musicians, would learn this song within about 30 minutes. Then they kind of mess about with it on their own between them. And then they would spend the next 4 hours playing it and playing it and playing it whilst we recorded, and we kind of gave direction from the booth almost. And so it was so strange. I'd never had this. I'd never handed over so much kind of creative control before, which was a tough thing at first, but I kind of fell in love with it. There was something incredible about having these, immensely talented musicians take your song and put these small kind of flourishes on it and play it with such like a kind of energy and kind of like a camaraderie, that it just felt right. It felt amazing to kind of hear these songs played back rather than me sweating, running into the other room, listening back through the speakers, going back in, layering. And so it was an incredible process that I would definitely love to do again.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it was, it was coming. It sounds like with everything else that you were doing, you were definitely, by coming here on a wing and a prayer with no idea what you were going to be doing. Sounds like this time has been very much about you just sort of like, putting it out there and allowing things to come into your life. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Learning to just go with the flow, I think has been a big thing. I've always been not kind of uptight, but I think a little bit,
well, you're
protective.
English. You're English. We're all a little Come on.
But I think also coming through the major label pop industry, I am, I'm protective of my songs and protective of the people I used to record.
Well, and rightly so, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, would love to do. I think the plan is to do that again. To work with these musicians and to make this more of a collaboration. Something that I wish I'd done more in my career so far.
Right. Well, you got time, I mean, I'm sure like most musicians I know, you feel like you don't, but you do.
Yeah.
You really do.
Good. It's nice to hear that.
If we can live in the moment, then, time doesn't really sort of matter anymore,
Absolutely.
That's my experience. So, okay. So when did you finish? I mean, did you get the recording sessions done before we all had to, lock ourselves away?
Yeah. So I only spent a couple of weeks there. We just kind of absolutely kind of flew through it once we kind of found our footing with it. And like we had that every day, that routine and that kind of fun of sitting down to lunch, learning the song, playing the song, so it was done. Probably the fastest record I've ever done. And so once we'd recorded it, we started to really kind of think about how to release it. And I think where a lot of my kind of, I guess, my mental kind of fatigue has come from in the past has come from the very traditional way of releasing music. That's exhausting. It's quite a lot for an artist to spend about 6 months going back and forth to radio and only really releasing maybe 2 singles and then dropping an entire album. And then people feeling like people maybe just gloss over the album tracks and just listen to the singles. And it's just a long distance to go, with sitting on these songs that you've already spent the best part of probably like a year or 2 listening to, writing, recordings.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to move fast. We wanted to record these songs, get them mixed, and because the way that these songs were conceived through these experiences over the course of a year, it felt kind of only right to do the same with the way we released them, to release them in pairs, maybe every month it was like every 5 weeks, I think we released 2 tracks. And we just kind of dripped the album out like that so people could sit with the tracks. They could learn the story behind the 2 of them. We could, tell people about them. They could kind of have a little taste of these 2. And then, 5 weeks later, this was the next part of the story. And they were able to kind of live that year with me, from leaving Liverpool to arriving in LA, to failing to find places to live, struggling to find friends, and to go through these kind of these ups and downs with me. And so, yeah, so we just carried that on throughout the year of these kind of 2x2.
It's almost like, I mean, I'm a big fan, by the way, of releasing music the way that people listen to music. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I really personally have felt this for a long time, that the album as a format, much as we love albums, and there's
Mm-hmm.
something very special about, for an artist as well, to record a bunch of songs, then figure out how you're going to sequence them and all that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But let's be honest, people don't listen to music like that anymore. So
Yeah.
if you put out something, it sounds like it's almost like an A/B, right? It's like
Yeah.
an old 7-inch. You've got an A side and a B side. You put two out at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
and as you said, drip them out every 5 weeks or so. And then people who are fans are going to be hungry for the next one, right? I mean,
Yeah.
how has it worked for you? And are all the songs out now?
Yeah, all the songs are out now. I mean, yeah, it's just like, I don't know. I enjoy some comics, and you know, I enjoy waiting until the artist has finished the next one to find out the next part of the story.
Right.
And so that's kind of, you know, that's how I enjoyed that process, and yeah, they're, you know, all released now, and the album came out on the last two when the last two came out. And so yeah, and so it's been a month now of just kind of weirdly reflecting on an album released in a global pandemic. So it's been an interesting month.
So the album is called Grand Plan, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the title track.
And if people want to actually get an album, do you have albums like vinyl or CDs? I mean, can they go to Camp or something like that?
Yeah, they can just go to my website, dancroll.com, and they can get it, all the goodies. Yeah, it's all available now to buy and stream.
But they're all streaming separately, obviously.
Yeah, well, no, now they're all together on on Spotify and all of that. They sit together as the album. It was just leading up to it that they had the kind of this A/B singles.
So let me ask you about releasing music during a pandemic. Did the plan change? I mean, I presume you had scheduled touring around this.
Yes, yeah. I mean, actually, the day that the travel ban came in, I was putting my bags in the back of an Uber and getting ready to go to LAX and fly back home to start about a 2-month tour. And then my agent and manager just rang me and were just like, don't think you should come home. Don't know if you're going to be able to get back into the US, all of this stuff. And so one of the first flights I've probably ever missed. And yeah, it felt strange to watch it unravel over the next few days. But in terms of the release of the album and all of that, we stuck by it. We didn't want to change plans. Like I say, I'd spent the better part of like 2 years with this album, or a year and a half with the album, and I just wanted to get it out. I didn't want this to halt it. I didn't want this to stop it. And I think people need music now more than ever, and so just wanted to keep going with it. I think I needed it as well, you know, to have the feeling like things were moving and things were still happening. But yeah, the tour got cancelled and or postponed. I don't know which, but I don't see that happening for a long time now. And so so now it's kind of, I guess it's just about adapting. I'm not too sure.
So have you been able to perform at all, like online, doing any online stuff?
We've done maybe 2. We did a couple of streams for other people, and then I did fly back to Richmond a month ago now, or maybe less. I flew in and then flew out just to do a kind of live stream session with the guys, Matthew and the band from Space Bomb, which was incredible. You know, I just felt like I had to do something special because streaming is just it's just gone from 0 to 100. You know, it's so heavily saturated. I personally can't watch any more shows on my phone. I'm over that now. I don't know how people do, and so a part of me is just kind of resided to that fact of like the live's gone. You know, I've had to kind of just move on past it now.
So how are you dealing with living in a pandemic? And if this is a nosy question, again, tell me, but you know.
No, I mean, yeah.
Do you live with anybody? Are you alone? Are you isolated? I mean, what are you doing?
No, thankfully, I live with my girlfriend and our cat, and
Right.
so that's been incredible to, obviously not be alone, as we both would have been had I gone back to the UK that day.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I say, I think because we didn't stop anything with regards to the release of the album, things kind of kept busy, and I stayed motivated and stayed, I think, a little bit creative, and so for those first few months, I was flying, nothing felt different. I live a bit of a kind of secluded lifestyle like most people, most musicians do. We work from home every day, nothing changed about
Yeah,
that.
it's not that much different, is there?
No, I was like, if anything, I just had a bit more company, and I was like, oh, great.
Yeah.
So it was nice. And so everything was everything was fine, I think, until the album kind of dropped, and then it all kind of,
Some sort of anticlimax around that.
oh, absolutely bittersweet. Yeah, really bittersweet.
It's done all this work and now it's out and I can't do anything.
Yeah, like I say, the first time in like 10 years where I hadn't just left the door, I had left the house and gone on tour for the best part of a year,
Yeah.
So that incredibly strange. Yeah.
So what have you, go on, sorry.
I was just going to say, and that's kind of, I think financially as well, you make some money on tour sometimes through merch, and you keep yourself afloat through sales and boosting streams through touring and word of mouth and all of that stuff. And so that all stopped. And to be honest, I actually have taken quite a big step back from music, and haven't. I think I kind of had a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to everything. My dad lost his job with due to COVID, and I started seeing friends really struggle, and I think I got a little bit paranoid, and so I ended up taking on a lot of work, a lot of odd jobs, mostly in the podcasting world, and so have been doing a lot of that, and so I haven't been writing any songs, haven't been doing any of my own music, and so it's been quite strange.
So when you say in the podcasting world, give us a hint of to what you've been doing.
I mean, just editing podcasts, very very monotonous.
You're sitting in front of a computer every day with Logic or something, or
absolutely, and like downloading royalty-free music, jingles and stuff like that. Yeah, it's
whatever pays the bills, man.
Well, that's it. It was that fear of, well, oh my God, I've just seen one half of my industry just completely collapse.
Yeah. How do I keep a roof over my head? I mean, I think we're all in the same thing. I mean, I'm working from home. I do the radio show from home, and I hustle other work, in Spain, wherever, it's like wherever somebody will hire me to do what I do, and somehow we stay afloat. And for me, I just feel like there are so many people who are so much worse off than us, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Gratitude.
Yeah, and I think that was it as well. Was not only I don't want it to come across in kind of like a selfish way, but to look after myself. But it was, it's I've tried to push myself to work harder to, support the band that I would be taking on tour had it not been for the pandemic. So helping those guys out with money where I can, because they're struggling. Absolutely. My front of house technicians and lighting designers, all of that, that's gone, for a while. And so just suddenly went into kind of hustle mode. And I feel like I've only just come up for air, to be honest.
Well,
maybe 2 months.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be never ending, I think. Who knows when we'll be out there again. I got a feeling it's maybe next summer if we're lucky, I don't know. Do you miss?
If
do you miss the traveling?
Absolutely, yeah. The traveling, the camaraderie of the guys, the kind of discovery of different venues and new cities and places, and been trying to make up for it in other ways, taking little drives outside of LA and stuff like that, and exploring more of the kind of local stuff happening. And we drove up to Sea Ranch this weekend and kind of got my mind blown by the beauty of Northern California. And so that, I've been trying to keep, sane by doing that kind of stuff. But yeah, absolutely, I miss it. Being a musician is such like a 1 in a million job. Very lucky to have it. But yeah, the most part of it is traveling, and And without that, it's been a bit strange. So
And you're an Angelino now, whether you like it or not.
yeah. Now I am. Yeah, I was only meant to stay a year, but no, now it's I'm staying here. I do love it, and the experiences keep coming. Obviously the big one is being in a pandemic in LA.
Sure.
But the fires, the
earthquakes,
the earthquake, the works. It is weirdly exciting.
Yeah, right.
It is. Yeah. It's kind of messed up, and I'm
never boring in this town.
No.
Well, listen, man, it's been great catching up with you. And hopefully we don't have to do this twice. I think I've recorded.
Yeah. Here's hoping. No, thanks so much for having me, Nic.
Yeah, it's great to see you.
All right. Take it easy, man.